啊？呢個廣告。
我哋 prepare 咗議事規則。
啊？呢個可以揸？攞埋議事規則啊？
淨係攞呢份，淨係攞呢份。
我淨係攞呢個。好。哦，呢個好睇啲啊！呢個。
主席嗰邊啊。就係一邊。
OK， 可以啦嘛。唔該晒，唔該晒。
我俾後邊電視台仲係。我行多少少，唔好意思啊，
要揮手。
你右手邊啊？用左手得唔得
？OK， 仲有啲咩？仲有啲咩動作？唔該晒，唔該晒，唔該晒。好啦，就咁先啦嘛。多謝晒，多謝晒。因為一陣一響鐘我要走人㗎。係啊。後邊。快啲響鐘啊！快啲啊！打時間。
好歡迎大家嚟到。
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome you all to the press conference. Would you like to step back a little bit? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the press conference. First of all, I would like to give the floor to our President. Ladies and gentlemen, at this press briefing, I would like to talk about the work of the current term Legislative Council. Well, I was supposed to do this upon the formal prorogation of the Legco before I do this. However, the Legislative Council Commission made an earlier decision, that is, once the Council stands provoke all members, whether we stand for re-election, should not, during the prorogation of the Council, call any press briefings or be interviewed by the media within this council building. This is not a legislative provision, but then it is a decision of the Legco Commission, so as to prevent serving members being able to use the facilities of the Legco building so as to stand at an unfair advantage over the other candidates during the general election of the Legco. And as a result, we are not able to wait until the completion of the Legco meeting, and therefore I have to do it while the meeting is still ongoing. Of course, on the one hand, for the figures that I'm going to talk about in a moment, they will not include the details or reflect the situation between now and midnight today. And then, as you can see now, when the quorum bell is rung, and if by the 13th minute there is still a lack of quorum, I have to rush back to the chamber. Now we have got about 10 minutes before I have to do so. Let me just address you first. Let me give you some figures, and I believe that such figures are of significance, and they will illustrate the issue. On the 10th of October 2012, we had our first meeting for this term. From the 10th of October 2012 to today, the current term, that is the 5th Legco, held a total of 143 meetings, including 16 Chief Executives question and answer sessions. Every session, for every session, we have 4 such Q&A sessions from the CE. and all the meetings altogether took 2,174 hours. I believe that it must be a record. During the last term, the number was 1,908 hours. The number of quorum calls made by members, like what we are having now during council meetings, totaled 1,478, consuming more than 220 hours. If we just look at the current year, there is the current legislative session which is about to finish, the number of quorum calls made is the highest ever, totaling 596, almost 600. Probably by the time that we finish tonight, the figure would certainly go beyond 600. And as of now, 115 hours have been consumed. Due to the lack of a quorum, when we have to abort the meeting, 18 council meetings were adjourned and 11 of them occurred during this legislative session. And this is a record in the history of the Legislative Council. But still, in this term, on bills, the government introduced 89 bills, and the Council passed 83 of them. I just want to emphasize once again this figure. That is, for the 4 years in this term, the government altogether introduced 89 bills, among which 83 were passed. On average, we passed over 20 bills in a single session. Among the bills passed, 47 were passed with amendments, and the remaining 36 without amendments. And this included a bill of which the length of consideration by the Council has been the longest, and that is the 2014 Appropriation Bill, using nearly 149 hours. So we are merely talking about the time spent at the council meetings. In addition, one bill was negatived. One could not be further dealt with due to the passing of a motion to adjourn the proceedings of Committee of the Whole Council. One could not be dealt with as the second reading debate on it did not resume. Probably you recall which bills they were. For the bill negatived, it was Marriage Amendment Bill 2014. I think that's about the case of W. As to the bill that could not be further dealt with due to the passing of motion, well, certainly you recall that it was the Copyright Amendment Bill 2014. For Employment Amendment Bill 2016, the Bills Committee of that bill had been completed, but then the government did not come back to resume the second reading debate. As to the bill that is being dealt with currently, that is Medical Registration Amendment Bill 2016, I'm sure you all know that members are still struggling in the chamber. So we don't know that before the prorogation of the Council whether the bill can be dealt with. If we cannot deal with the Medical Registration Amendment Bill 2016, then two other bills, that is the Private Columbarium Bill and the Fire Services Amendment Bill 2015, will not be dealt with. In other words, Among the 89 bills introduced by the government, 83 had been passed, and then for the remaining 6, so one was negatived, and that's in relation to the Marriage Amendment Bill, and then another one was deferred, and that's the Copyright Amendment Bill, because the motion to adjourn the proceedings was passed, and then there was the Employment Amendment Bill 2016. The second reading debate was not resumed, and then for the remaining 3, it depends on the proceedings today.
Apart from government bills, we have received 3 members' bills, 2 of which have been passed, and 1, which is a bill to be moved by Mr. Ng Leung Sing, namely the Bank of Communications Hong Kong Limited Merger Bill. By the looks of it, we will not be able to deal with it. So these are the government bills and members' bills dealt with by this term of the Legislative Council. On subsidiary legislation, the administration tabled altogether 557 items of subsidiary legislation subject to the negative vetting procedure in this term, out of which 544 were passed without amendment and 13 with amendments. That means all 557 items have been passed. 13 of them were passed with amendments. In addition, 55 motions were moved by the administration to approve or amend subsidiary legislation subject to the positive vetting procedure. They were all passed. All 55 motions subject to the positive vetting procedure were all passed. There is one, which is proposed by the administration on amending the method for selection of the chief executive, that is, the constitutional reform. It required the majority, 2/3 majority of legislative members' support before it can be passed, and it was negatived. There is also one procedural item. The administration proposed a motion under Rule 91 of Rules of Procedure to suspend Rule 18(1) of the Rules of Procedure, that is, to change the order of business on the agenda, and it was passed. That is in relation to the order of business proposed by the government, the administration. In relation to members' motions, there are 5 motions for amending the ROP, the Rules of Procedure. They were moved by members in this term. 4 of them were passed. That is one under Rule 83A in relation to amendments to disclosure of the personal pecuniary interest. And I heard that initially when members discussed the matter, they were agreed. However, when it was put to the Council, it was negatived. There is one motion that is also for amending the ROP. It has been submitted by members, but it is likely that it won't be dealt with due to the prorogation of the term. Members also moved 18 motions seeking to invoke the Legislative Council Powers and Privileges Ordinance. 16 of them were negatived. As you know, they are related to making investigation or inquiry using the LC Powers and Privileges Ordinance. 16 of them were negative, and there is one outstanding item, but due to the prorogation of the term, it's highly likely that it will not be dealt with. In addition, there is one member's motion under Rule 91 of the ROP to suspend Rule 23(2) and 3 of the ROP. It was negatived. Members moved 8 motions under Rule 40 of the ROP to adjourn a debate or the proceedings of Committee of the Whole Council. Does it include the one that is being dealt with now? Do you know? Does it include the one that is being dealt with? It includes the one under debate. Oh, no, it's not included. So counting this one, there will be 9. It's a motion to adjourn during a committee stage or motion to adjourn during second reading. As I've said, there was one that was passed. That's in relation to the Copyright Amendment Bill. It means that it has been put aside. Members also moved 2 motions under Rule 55(1)(a) of the ROP for committing 2 government bills to 2 select committees. As you know, they were all negatived. In this term, the Council debated a total of 125 members' motions not intended to have legislative effect. 58 were passed without amendments and 13 with amendments. 54 motions were negatived. Another 10 motions of this type were highly unlikely to be dealt with due to the prolongation of the term. It hasn't even got its place on the agenda. Also, under Rule 16(2) and 4, members moved 2 and 7 adjournment motions respectively. So 7 of them were made under Rule 16(4), and there is one moved under Rule 16(4) that will likely not dealt with due to the prorogation of this term. A total of 5 petitions were presented to the Council under Rule 20(1) of the ROP. The petition were to refer the matters to select committees. There are also special approval given in relation to 3 items made under Section 7 of Cap 3A2 and also Rule 90 of the ROP. That is in relation to that is to request for special leave of the Council to give evidence of Council proceedings under Section 7 of the Legislative Council Powers and Privileges Ordinance, Cap 3A2, and Rule 90 of the Rules of Procedure. 3 of them were passed, and there is one that may not be dealt with because of a prorogation of this term. However, under Rule 90(4) of the ROP, the President may grant leave during the break, during recess, adjournment, or dissolution of the LegCo. In relation to questions, members asked a total of 569 oral questions, including 32 urgent questions. I think that has also set a record for the number of urgent questions. And in relation to these oral questions, 3,246 supplementary questions were asked. There are also 2,018 questions seeking written replies by the government asked by members. The President has altogether issued 128 written rulings. 72 relates to urgent oral questions. 56 includes 2 amendments of bills and subsidiary legislation. These figures, I would like to explain to you all that government officials, members of the public, would very much like to see a highly efficient legislative council. But if someone says that the LegCo cannot function properly or the LegCo has failed its duty, it will not be fair. I understand that for bills and motions that cannot be passed, say for example, the 3 bills that are awaiting to be passed, the Medical Registration Amendment Bill, Private Column Barrier Bill, and Fire Services Amendment Bill, we know that there is a strong voice in the community that they be passed by the Legislative Council. But things are not looking good. In relation to the Copyright Amendment Bill, it was controversial. However, there were still people who would like to see the passing of that bill.
Therefore, I think we need to admit that as far as this term of the LegCo is concerned, I don't think we should say that our performance has been very satisfactory in the eyes of the public. And I don't think members would say that what we have achieved in the past 4 years is very satisfactory. But I believe that given the system that we are working under, I believe that the majority of the members have discharged their duties and they have put in their endeavors. The figures that I have outlined have illustrated this point. Have I omitted anything? Perhaps I would like to pause here. I think the bell has stopped. In other words, we can have some peace of mind and we can carry on. I would like to pause here. Sorry, speaker is off mic. I'm from Cable TV. Good afternoon, President. For the Medical Registration Amendment Bill, do you think that it's likely to be passed? Are you going to stop the filibustering so as to allow the passage of the bill? For the current session and for current term, there have been more and more occasions of filibustering. Do you think that it is all due to C.Y. Leung, the CEO, or anybody else? Thank you for giving me this chance to comment on the so-called stopping the filibustering. From time to time, I have heard criticisms saying that the LegCo president should do the following. Had he been responsible, that is, the president should not allow any filibustering to take place at all. Some even said that I deliberately failed to stop the filibustering so as to cause trouble to the administration in its governance. I want to say that anybody, including myself, who is the president of the LegCo, must follow the rules of procedures and the law in discharging our duties. The rules of procedures, the basic law, and the relevant rules and regulations have not given a right to filibuster to the members of the LegCo. I think this point is clear from the judgment of the court. At the same time, the rules of procedures, the basic law, and the relevant laws, at the same time, have not given the president of the LegCo an absolute and an arbitrary right to stop the filibustering. In other words, if a president of the Legislature doesn't want the debate to go on, he cannot stop the filibustering, just like the situation that we find ourselves in. Now, personally speaking, for this medical registration amendment bill, I may have my own views, and I know that there are different voices in the community. Even if I know about the public opinion, even if I know the views of the medical doctors, as long as members in the chamber are acting in accordance with the rules of procedures and rights to speak, I cannot stop them. I can only remind members that they cannot digress, they cannot make repetitive arguments. That's all that I can say. I do not have the absolute right or power to stop it and say that a member may not speak. Well, some members have quoted what I have done in relation to the Appropriation Bill 2016, in relation to the time limit that I have imposed, and have said that I limited the time, and they said that I should do the same, and I should have done the same for this bill, and say that come 5 p.m. today, I will put an end to the debate. Well, at that time, I told members very clearly, that is, for 3 years in a row, I think you would recall that, since the year 2013, the appropriation bill was subject to filibustering by members. And just now, you know that we broke the record in relation to the Appropriation Bill 2014. So we have had the benefit of knowing the performance of the members in a few years in a row. So we're talking about the same term of the legislature. We are having more or less the same members who are moving the largest number of amendments. So in the light of previous experience, I believed that we had an objective basis to handle the matter in this way. And I don't believe that members have been limited in their speech. I didn't think that members were prevented from having a free hand to speak, and they were able to speak their mind. So it was sort of based on previous experience. And at the same time, for the appropriation bill, there was indeed a timing factor. If we allowed it to go on for a long period of time without passing the bill, it would mean that we haven't been deliberating and passing the appropriation bill and the budget in a responsible manner. So it was a special case, and I don't think it should be regarded as an example that I can impose a time limit on whatever topic, on whatever matter before us. Now, for today's meeting, I think how it will go on will depend on members' decisions and behavior. Currently, we are debating the motion to adjourn. Now, for the filibustering, as to whether the extent of filibustering has to do with the incumbent CE, I don't think it is right for me to make a judgment, because it involves a political judgment. In the past 4 years, we have had relatively more filibustering. There was, to a certain extent, some overlapping with the term of the current administration. But does it mean that had it not been CY Leung being the CE, we would not have filibustering? I can cite an example. For a few years in a row, the appropriation bill has been the subject of filibustering. Members made it clear that's for the sake of getting retirement protection. And some members have told me personally that as long as we haven't got retirement protection for all, he will still be filibustering the appropriation bill. So it is clear that it has got nothing to do as to the person holding the post of the CE. I'm from TVB. How would you describe the relationship between the executive and the legislature? Is it the worst since the handover? A lot has happened, and we can see that members are able to make use of the rules of procedures. As some have said, this has slowed down the progress of the business of the LegCo. And what about the coming term? It is expected that there will be more radicals joining the LegCo. So what sort of advice will you give to your successor?
This morning, I read an editorial of a newspaper making a criticism, saying that the LegCo has failed to become a drive, and instead it has become a hindrance. That's a criticism directed against the LegCo, saying that we are not a drive of progress, but a hindrance. But that is the design of our political system. As you know, that in the legislature, members are under very strict rules when moving a member's motion, and in relation to government bills, they may not make any amendments that would result in an increased spending on the part of the government. So it's not the case that if there is a certain policy to be implemented, the LegCo has the power to do so. We don't have the power to create. As you see that over 90% of the bills were moved by the administration. Very few were moved by members. And under the basic law, well, it is the duty of the executive to formulate and implement policies. It's our function to formulate and to scrutinize a bill. Without the legislature, there won't be anyone to scrutinize or negative government bills. Of course, the efficiency will be much higher, but the current design is that the main function of the legislature is to monitor the government. Legislators, whether they are directly elected or from the functional constituency, they represent different sectors of the public and monitor the government on their behalf. So there is some contradiction. So how do we describe a good relationship between the executive and the legislature? Let me once more remind members of the public. Do you think that for a legislature to approve every single one of government bills, then it means there is a good relationship, there is a good relation between the executive and the legislature? And we will be able to clear the name of being a hindrance. It's not the case. The relation between the legislature and the executive is one of checks and balances. We all have the public's well-being in mind, the well-being of society. So communication is very important. I can't deny that in this term of Legislative Council, we see something that would give the impression that the communication, or rather the communication between different camps in a legislature, say for example the pro-government ones and the opposition, have been put. Say, for example, when the chief executive would like to hear members' view on a policy address, some political parties boycotted this exercise. Examples like this are not conducive to get the legislature to do more for the people. I hope that this will change in the new term. It is not appropriate for me to be the backseat driver of the next president. But whoever the next president is, then, I believe that the new president will agree that everything has to be done in accordance with the rules of procedures. I believe that whoever is the next president, without trust and respect from the majority of legislators, it would be very difficult for the new president to perform its duty. I do believe that whoever the next president is something that he or she will have to bear in mind. Yesterday, there was a new arrangement in relation announced by the Electoral Affairs Office that a candidate will have to sworn to abide by the basic law. So what do you think about this new arrangement? Well, if we look at it from a political or a legal view, first of all, from a political perspective, it's reasonable, as you know that the basic law has already stipulated that when a legislator takes office, an oath will have to be made. The oath is about upholding the basic law and the Hong Kong SARG. And allegiance will have to be sworn. If a candidate openly said that he or she will not uphold the basic law and swear allegiance to the Hong Kong SARG, the Hong Kong SAR, if that candidate is elected, that means that prospective legislator will have to make an oath that contradicts to what he or she said in the manifesto. How can it be reconciled? So I do believe that from a political perspective, making a clear undertaking when someone decides to run is reasonable. And we've often said that the rule of law is a very important basis. All rules and regulations, restrictions will have to be supported by the law. If there is a new arrangement, naturally, one will ask, if a candidate refuses to sign such an undertaking, what will the consequence be? And if that person's right to stand in an election is taken away, then one is entitled to ask, based on which provision of the law can you do that? Well, the government has not explained, and I haven't looked into it. So on the legal perspective, I can't give a sure answer. But if someone refuses to go through that procedure, and as a result his or her right to stand in an election is taken away, then there should be some legal basis.
On your part, that you've been unable to build a better relationship between your colleagues here and with the central government? And secondly, on the EAC form, do you think that maybe barring candidates who might advocate independence, do you think that's healthy for our political development?
Your first question, definitely. If there is one thing during my tenure as president of the LegCo that is most regrettable, it is my failure to help establish a more productive, conciliatory relationship between various political groups, especially the pan-democrats and the central government. I believe for one country, two systems to work at all, we need this relationship between the legislature, the whole of the legislature, and the central government. After all, there is hardly anything discussed in the Legislative Council which is not related to mainland affairs. I am very glad that the head of the Hong Kong Macau Affairs Office, Mr. Wang Guangya, has said, he said recently that most of the pan-democrats are part of the establishment. 泛民都係建制 pan-democrats are also part of the establishment, which is, of course, is very true. Members of this legislature were elected in accordance with the basic law and laws of the SAR, and they are performing their duties as provided for in the basic law. Of course, they are part of the establishment. They are members of the Legislative Council of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region of the People's Republic of China. They are part of the establishment. And being so, I think it is very unreasonable that there is no normal channel of communication between the various political groups in the council and the central government. Sorry, your second question?
To bar candidates who advocate independence.
呢第二個問題係咩呢？其實關於話有關嘅係宣佈咧，都係今朝先睇到㗎，可以從多個角度去可以。
Behind the decision that potential candidates should make that declaration for, after all, if they are elected, after they are elected, before taking office, they have to go through the oath-taking process in which they have to pledge allegiance to the SAR. But that, of course, is a political judgment. In order to bar someone from taking part in an election, because, again, according to the basic law, I think a Hong Kong permanent resident satisfying certain conditions has the right to become a candidate. To strip someone of this right, I think there must be a legal basis. So people are bound to ask, what is the law on which this requirement is based? I have not made any in-depth study into the question, so it is not for me to answer on this legal point.
Apple Daily, thank you, Mr. President. During your 8-year tenure, what is your most regrettable item that you have omitted to do, and what is the matter that you have the greatest pride in? 8 years ago, when I started to take office as the president, I had this idea in mind. I thought I should work hard to build a normal channel of communication between the various political parties and alliances in the legislature and the central people's government. In the past, we had certain examples. That is, when the legislature had to discharge our normal duties, say for example, when we would like to form a delegation to go to the mainland on a duty visit, some members were not able to go, and as a result, the tour was cancelled, and this happened on more than one occasion. And I don't think this is reasonable, and I don't think this should be the case. This shouldn't be the case, actually. And actually, day in, day out, the legislature has been discussing businesses, and I don't think any of them has nothing to do with the mainland. Therefore, we need a good communication channel before we can properly discharge our duties. Well, in fact, we have mainland officials coming to Hong Kong to visit, and they have not been aware of this. They have regarded it as something natural. For the legislature in Hong Kong, as well as the NPC, both at the national level and at the provincial level, they have asked about our exchange activities. And I told them that we basically didn't have any of such activities, and they were surprised. And for me, for us to have one country, two systems, to be practiced successfully, I think, as Wang Ya has said, the majority of the political parties uphold the basic law and support the basic law. Whoever that has been elected to this legislature is also part of the establishment, and there should be a good channel of communication. But unfortunately, for the past 8 years, I don't think I can say that the progress has been satisfactory. But of course, in the past 8 years, there were times that we were able to have good exchanges. I myself also went to the mainland together with some members for visits, and every time members were happy with that, irrespective of the political background. Upon return from the mainland, they all felt good about the visits, but unfortunately that has not become something which is regular and normal. As to what I'm proud of, I don't think I have any to talk about. Well, I have tried to put together a few words to say before the prorogation at 12 midnight today. I had tried to say that for me to be the president of such an excellent legislative council is an honor and is very satisfying. But then, looking back at what happened in the past few days, I think such feelings have weakened, and I'm afraid that the mood before we end our business tonight would not allow me to say such words. But that was what I had wished to say from the bottom of my heart. But then, if I were really to say so tonight, I think people won't take them as true words. President, just now you have said that as far as the relationship and communication between the legislature and executive, as well as between Hong Kong and the mainland, you would like to see some changes. Now, for the new legislature to be formed, do you have any ideas as to how this can be done? And you have also talked about the many records that have been broken by this legislature. You have been in politics for about 2 decades. Do you think that this is the most difficult time for the legislature, and do you expect more records to be broken in the new term? Let me take your second question first. I've always said that I've been lucky because I have got a very professional and competent secretariat helping me. So for us to deal with unexpected problems, I've never had the feeling that I'm lonely or I'm at a loss as to what to do. But what is certain is that for the current term electrical, we have the largest number of unexpected events, like we have our buildings being stormed into, our windows and doors have been priced open, and we have so many calls for quorum count.
11萬
And the 110,000 amendments. I would like to take the opportunity to talk about this. Well, more than one person have heard that I have not even looked at the 110,000 amendments and rejected them. That is not the case. The Secretariat would not allow me to do that. When I receive members' amendments, I'm not allowed to not look at them and reject them. So if you're interested, I am very happy to tell you how we deal with the 110,000 amendments and how the Secretariat and I myself have gone through them. We don't have to go through all 110,000 of them. You only have to look at some of them, and then you realize you don't have to go through all of them. But it doesn't mean that we have slighted them or we have given them any less importance. When a member moves a large number of amendments, it will result in longer meeting time, and it puts tremendous pressure on Secretariat. The member is fully aware of that. Notwithstanding, the Secretariat has a very effective team which lends me huge support. So I do not feel that I have encountered any insurmountable duty in my work. But there are many moments that are memorable in this term. The next term, we're all guessing. And this is what I believe. Hong Kong people are still pragmatic and rational. We still respect the rule of law. We still attach a lot of importance to rules, to propriety and decorum. I don't think the public will will support someone who continues to flout the law. And there is a saying, well, when something goes to the extreme, it will backfire. Look at the past 10 hours or so. I believe that inside and outside the chamber, there are strong feelings. We all have our limits. Well, there are a lot of new radical groups sprouting after the umbrella movement. But if they are returned, as legislators, they have to abide by the rules. When they enter the chamber, they have to act in accordance with the rules of procedure. Breaching the rules of procedure will be dealt with by the new president. I do not believe that the Legislative Council will become anarchy, will fall into anarchy. I don't believe that. Sorry, speakers of mic. I pin my hopes on the wisdom of new legislators and the new government. In the past, if the strained relation between the executive and the legislature is a result of someone's attitude and behavior, we will take stock of what happened in the past few years and learn from it. We must learn that if we continue along the same path, everyone will lose. It won't do any good to the relations between the legislature and the executive. It will not do any good to the Legislative Council, and it will not do any good to the people of Hong Kong. I'm sure we will find a way. You have given us a lot of figures about quorum calls and filibustering. Filibustering members often said that they are reluctant to filibuster, but they are given no choice because the administration refused to listen to them. Say, for example, the Copyright Amendment Bill. Well, because of filibustering, the administration changed its stance. So it's not just the legislators who have to change. The executive will have to change as well. Another question is about the next president. A lot of people ask you what word of wisdoms you will pass on to the new president. There are a lot of speculations on the next president. Some people say that the post should be filled by a directly elected legislature instead of one from the functional constituency, because they have because the person will have public mandate, and when it comes to stopping filibustering, they will face more pressure from the public. Say, for example, dealing with the company's ordinance amendment, and then they can deal with it with a more effective way. If you say that it's just the problem of the administration that results in filibustering on the part of legislature, it is unfair to put the blame on the government. As you know that these members are the minority in the council. So if the bill is put to a vote, it will be passed. So they have to filibuster to stop it from being passed. And if a bill is supported by the majority in the council, and if a minority group wants to stop it and use filibustering to force the government to withdraw it, then it's not fair to legislators and members of the public who support the bill. Let's look at overseas parliament. Other parliament have gone through a difficult period, and they could not extricate themselves from filibustering, and they agreed to change the rules of the parliament to impose restrictions on filibustering. We haven't reached that stage yet. In Hong Kong, whenever there are when some legislators and the administration come to a loggerhead, then there will be filibustering. Say, for example, the Medical Registration Amendment Bill. If the administration said they would withdraw it, I'm sure there will be heavy criticism raining on the government. What's your second point? Sorry, speakers off mic. As you know that after the reunification, the first Legislative Council, it was Mrs. Rita Fan who was the president. She was not directly elected, but I can say that she was widely supported by members from different groups. When I first became the president of the Legislative Council, there were doubts about my ability and my political affiliation. They thought that I would not be able to win the trust of members from other political parties. So whoever it is, there will be pressure from different fronts. Given the current political environment, a member returned by the functional constituency filling the post of president might be criticized or challenged. Someone might use the excuse that you're not directly elected. However, the president is someone who is supported by vote by legislators, and they will have, and he or she will have the support of the secretariat, so there will not be any problem. Just now, you said that the majority of members have performed their duty conscientiously, and you have given us a figure saying that the number of council meetings being aborted has set a record high. Some members have set the goal to use quorum count to cause an abortion. Well, first of all, do you think that members not being in the council attending a meeting is not performing its duty? One of the ways is to amend the rules of procedure. But as the president, are there any ways to deal with the quorum issue? Thirdly, Mr. Lau Wong-Fat, he's been on leave for a very long time, and you have approved his leave of absence. That itself is a problem. In the future, if a member has fallen ill and cannot attend meetings over a long period of time, should there be some way to deal with that?
For the first question concerning the quorum clause, I think you know that it has become a way to filibuster by members, or you can say that it has become a political tool. In the past, I did comment on this, and let me repeat the point briefly. The legislature of Hong Kong has inherited the parliamentary culture of the UK, so traditionally speaking, members would not be remaining in the chamber throughout the meeting. And it is not our convention to say that a member who is not present in the chamber will be accused of being lazy or committed direction of duty. I believe that when members are not inside the chamber, are actually carrying out other duties as a legislative member instead of having gone home or getting lazy. So it has always been our convention that we do not expect members to remain in the chamber throughout. Even with the onset of filibustering and before the current session of this term, I think members have not been relying on continuous quorum calls to filibuster. Probably it is in this session that members have discovered that it's much easier to rely on quorum calls instead of having to prepare speeches so as to filibuster. And then for other members who have to remain in the chamber so as to form a quorum, I can understand their sentiments. As I have said, once a meeting has been started, if a member has started his speech, the others can go out to attend to other business. So when the bell is rung, then they have to rush back and they have to listen to the member who is on his feet. But then they may think that they are being forced to come back to remain in the chamber instead of attending to other meaningful business. I have already asked our Secretariat staff to consult the views of a number of legal experts, but then as a result of the brevity and simple words and simple requirements in Article 75 of the Basic Law, we have to live with this. That is, whenever a member asks for a quorum call, when there is a lack of quorum in the chamber, we have to summon members back to the chamber. If you want to know whether the President can deal with this matter, now, if you leave it to the President alone to talk about amendment to the rules of procedure or amendment of the law, I don't think this is possible, because this is all about Article 75 of the Basic Law. If the new President of the new term can have authoritative legal opinion to tell him that Basic Law 75, when applied to the meetings of the LegCo, can be interpreted in this way, that is, at the time that we start the meeting or when we put a matter to the vote, that's the only occasions that we need a quorum, then the matter can be resolved. But we need a convincing and authoritative legal opinion before we can embark on that. So that's my reply to your first question. Sorry, I forgot your second question. Amending the rules of procedures. Well, probably it was at least 2 years ago that the proposal was made. I do believe that there is a need to amend the rules of procedures, but you will appreciate the difficulty. I hope that both the pan-democrats and the pro-establishment camp will say that they can take it no more, and then there are strong calls and public outcry in the society, and they don't understand the case. They just think that we are not carrying out our duty if we do not amend the rules of procedures. Then things won't work. Then it will be the time to make amendments. As to the quorum calls, I don't think we can deal with that matter by amending the rules of procedures. Rather, as I have said, this is about the interpretation of Article 75 of the Basic Law. As to the right to speak an unlimited number of times, I think we can amend the rules of procedures, but we must have the majority of the members who make a decision instead of leaving it just in the hands of the President alone. Did you have a third question? Speaker is off mic. Thank you for your question. The medical doctor of Mr. La Wangfan sent me certificates for a number of occasions, saying that he was not fit to come back to the LegCo to attend meetings. According to the Basic Law, if a member has a reason to seek leave, he may do so. But the responsibility rests on me. I have to decide whether to give him the approval. I have to strike a balance. First of all, the member himself. I have received medical certificates from his doctor a number of times, and I've also received information from the member himself. I still cannot come to a conclusion that it is impossible for Mr. Lau to continue with his duty. That's not what the doctor said, and that's not his wish. That's the first point. Another point is that, of course, it's also a matter that we need to consider as to the duration of his leave that he has applied for. 3 months and then 3 months and then another 3 months. For those of you who have followed this issue, you would know that basically he has not come back for the current session. In the beginning, you may think that it's fine, but later on, you will also consider that the end of the term is approaching. If you decide that he cannot come back, it means that you are taking away his membership. that means we need to have a by-election. Will there be time to hold a by-election? Would it be in the best public interest? I think I have to consider this matter. So I've looked at all the factors and I continue to approve his application for leave.
Do you think that has fulfilled its role during this term, and your comments on more lawmakers are using the rules of procedure in an attempt to, stall some of the bills or to filibuster? What do you think about that? During this term, you said there has been more filibustering, and also, do you foresee that as the situation for the next year? Do you see this as the situation in the future?
The Secretariat will provide you with the basic statistics. 有未㗎佢哋？嗰啲數字有未㗎？嚇有 OK yes you will be provided with the statistics. During the last 4 years, during our term, the government introduced 89 bills altogether. Out of these 89 bills, the Council passed 83. So a very high percentage of the government bills actually successfully went through the Council. It is not the case that the Council has not been performing its duties properly. Among those 83 bills passed, 47 were passed with amendments, and the remaining 36 without any amendment. As for the subsidiary legislation, the administration tabled 557 items of subsidiary legislation subject to the negative vetting procedure. And of these 557 items, 544 were passed without any amendment. And the remaining were all passed with amendment. So there are, of course, bills and government proposals which the Council has rejected and which maybe many members of the public would like to see passed, including, for example, what's it called? Medical registration. Medical registration amendment bill, which is now being debated by the committee, and also the copyright amendment bill earlier. So, yes, no doubt, the Council, in the opinion of many people, the Council should have done more. But it is, I believe, unfair to say that the Council has failed to perform its duty, because after all, the main function of the Council is to monitor the work of the government. It is for us, for my colleagues, to see to it that no proposal by the government goes through this Council without being carefully scrutinized by the members. Okay? As for what's going to happen in the new Council after the new Council is formed, I think it is everybody's guess. I only want to point out that all members, including the President of the Legislative Council, have to act in accordance with our rules. So there are the rules, there is the basic law and relevant legislation for us to follow. And anyone regardless of his or her political stance, whether a member is a radical or a moderate. Once inside the chamber, he or she will have to act in accordance with the rules. And the new president will be there to make sure that the proceedings of the council will be proper. No, the last part of your question? The filibuster? Yes? What? The president of the Legislative Council or the chairman of the whole committee of the council does not have an absolute power to cut a filibuster. The president cannot stop a debate at will. If a debate is proceeding in strict accordance with the rules of procedure, then there is no way to stop it. So this is how the filibusters have been happening. So I understand that many people, both inside and outside the council, are not happy with this state of affairs. Now the only remedy is to change our rules, to make new rules to govern filibustering. In other legislatures, in legislatures elsewhere, legislatures which have suffered from filibustering, they have, most of them, have made rules to make sure that if there is an overwhelming majority of the legislature who say we should stop it, then the filibuster shall stop.
Sorry, speakers off mic. Sorry, speaker is off mic. Sorry, speakers off mic. Sorry, the speakers off mic. Would you miss certain members more than others looking back in the past 8 years? Some members from the Loyalists can criticize you for siding with pan-democrats. Sorry, speakers of mic. Sorry, speakers of mic. First, I don't think I am partial towards the pan-democrats. In the past 8 years as the president, I have seriously listened to the views of members from different political parties and staff members from the Secretariat, as well as looked into precedents when I made the ruling. So I don't think I am partial towards the pan-democrats. I may think that I have been very careful, but I can't say that there is no ruling that I have not done perfectly, and it has caused grievances or dissatisfaction from pan-democrats or loyalists. But you will see that well, the majority are rulings that the pan-democrats are not happy with. Well, I am the president, but pan-democrats have never voted for me. Of course, they wouldn't have something to say about that. However, some loyalists would think that I have failed them. But I don't feel that I have sided with pan-democrats. I have also seen some comments saying that I condone the pan-democrats to pave the way for my running as the chief executive. I don't understand how you can put these two together. But of course, the majority of the election committee is are loyalists. And if you ask me how I feel, well, I don't know what I will do. I am at a loss because I have led a very, I have followed a very rigid routine. Monday to Friday, the electrical driver would drive me here at 7:30, unless there is some traffic situation. Saturday, I drive and arrive here at 7:30. Sunday, I would have morning tea with my brother, and I would arrive here at 9:30. So without this routine, I don't know what I'm going to do. So when you ask me, I'm at a loss. Of course, I have a think tank, and I can occupy myself with it, but I don't know. Well, I don't know whether I would be able to break away from this pattern. Of course, I will miss you all. Yes? Why would you miss us? We're reporters. I don't know why. I see you so often. I'm so used to seeing you. And in the future, when I go to work, I will wonder where have all the reporters gone? Sorry, it's because of Mike. Well, I would like to meet all all the fellow legislators, and the Secretariat will make arrangements. I think I have to go back. Thank you very much.
點話咪影？嚇？今日呢個中山裝有冇特別間中？冇啊，洗淨嗰件有啲拎咗去洗啊，呢件未洗啊。幾耐未洗過？攞最耐未洗一件嚟着，因為今日實係好殘嘅，着到半夜，係咪？着完就攞去洗啊！呢幾時飲茶？嚇？幾時飲茶？飲茶冇啦，我細佬而家去旅行，幾開心啊！等佢翻嚟先係8月初先翻去嚇。OK， 拜拜。唔該曬，唔該曬，唔該曬。喺你後邊啊。